if I can just make a couple of comments about the president, who I once called a rock star in my world, and he is, because anytime I go on Twitter, I find the most extraordinary things. So I was going through Twitter, and the World Bank tweeted this 2 days ago. Rwanda is the top performer in measure of shared prosperity in sub-Saharan Africa. And that just goes to the point you are making about how we can all participate together. And I think it's a singular achievement of Rwanda, and I hope we can export that to the rest of East Africa. I'd just like to make a couple more points. Muhammad Ali had a very famous phrase, which was, "Impossible is nothing," and whenever I come here to Rwanda and I hear the president speak and I see his team, that's how I feel. And I want to thank you for empowering us, not as Rwandans, but as East Africans, for making us feel that we can do it, because we can. We have the talent in this room. You have people like yourselves, Dr. Mwangi, who's expanded across the continent. We have all kinds of people from your side. We have those people who can make the change sitting in this room. And I like to think we are all ardent followers of you. If I can just quickly introduce the other panelists before I move on. On my right is Mr. Benjamin Gassamagera, engineering and computer science graduate from the University of Tianjin, speaks fluent Mandarin, trained in Switzerland, entrepreneur, businessman, has been running a personal business for over 10 years in the field of manufacturing and trade, presently with an annual turnover of over 10 million, and whose tagline is, "My mandate as chairman is to offer inspiration through leadership." Thank you. And a friend at the far end, Kiprono Kitoni, chairman of the KNCCI. And if you, like me, know what the KNCCI looked like before he took over, there's been tremendous progress, and today is an example of that progress. Kip is also a director of KEPSA, and I call him an economic diplomat because he's at the forefront of economic diplomacy, chairman of Radio Africa Group, which is a big media house in Kenya, chairman of AAR Insurance, and CEO of Capital Real Time, and a real leader in the corporate sector in the space which he was referring to, which is corporate governance, which I think Rwanda has got in spades, and we'd like to see that in Kenya as well. Mr. President, if I might start with yourself. Sorry, just bear with me a second. You know, when we look at trade blocs across the world, one observes that the success is because countries understand it is imperative to engage in regional multilateral trade and investment to grow their economies. The Kenya-Rwanda Business Forum is an example of this, how the private sector can take the lead in deepening regional integration. What do you think are some other ways in which Rwanda and Kenya can continue to champion your mindset, champion this mindset which is infusing this entire room across the region and Africa as well? How do we export this? How do we bottle you, Mr. President, and take you across the continent and get this mood going that you have given us here today?
It really starts with continuing to challenge ourselves and know that there are things we have to do. They may not be easy things at all, but if we have to get anywhere, then we have to do what needs to be done, however challenging that may be. And really, if you look back in time, what conferences have taken place, what meetings have taken place, and you find that people know what needs to be done. They're talking about everything they talk about. is just what needs to be done. We still fall short in being able to do what needs to be done, that we already know. And therefore, for me, this is where the challenge lies, and this is where I'm saying we need to keep asking ourselves. So we literally have everything in place. We have all the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the understanding, we have tested the fruits of some of the things that have been done. So how can we accelerate that? And one or other ways that have always been talked about is collaboration, it's working together, which really is very well underscored by the quest for regional integration we talk about. How do you integrate when you don't have private sectors working together, like in this particular case, which forms a good example, where Kenyan private sector and Rwandan private sector have come together to do this? How do we make good progress when government doesn't work with the private sector very closely on many things as we move forward? Even in terms of when we look at formulation of policies and putting all kinds of regulatory frameworks in place that help businesses thrive in combination with these policies, there is a need for this very strong collaboration. How do we continue to allow, just to the minimum, intra-African trade, when we know the potential there is if we increased it for everyone, for businesses, for ordinary people, for also governments, because governments, I would not understand what pride governments would derive from not seeing this happen, where businesses, citizens all thrive, and there is overall progress taking place. So for me, it goes back to this all the time. So when you ask me what is it we can do, what we can do is what we know we can do, and really what we are capable of doing. So the constant question for me is, what is it that diverts us from this and slows our progress? Because when you look at the growth of our economies, whether individual countries of East Africa or East Africa as a region as a whole, and beyond Africa, it suggests there is a good story here that needs to be told, but needs that holds huge potential, that needs raising even to a higher level. And as long as we also take care of the side of making sure that everybody is included. So we should not even just narrow our thinking. First of all, it is not good at all to just think about, say, Rwanda, and I'm here just thinking about Rwanda and confining myself there. We need to think about East Africa, but we need to think about the whole continent and how this whole continent of Africa plays in the global scheme of things. Where is our place, and what do we get from it, and what do we offer to others? And I think there is a lot, but we need to get more organized and be able to deliver that.
And do you feel that we're moving directionally, we're moving at the speed that President Kagame is satisfied with, or do you
I think we are making progress.
Yes.
But I'm not satisfied.
That's what I thought.
That's the whole.
Mr. President, and we thank you for convening such a wonderful forum, because I think it is events like this which are catalytic in making things happen and putting people in the same room. If I might jump to Rwanda itself, you've had this open door policy. You know, if you meet Africans anywhere in Africa, they feel one place they can go without any problem is Kigali, because you're welcoming talent. But what is Rwanda doing itself in terms of its current investment promotion policy with regards to promoting this regional foreign direct investment? And what does the new investment code recently launched by Rwanda offer to Kenyan investors who are looking to expand their presence in new markets? And if I can just add a comment, you know, I worked many years ago for a man called Bob Diamond, and I find it interesting that such a fellow came here to Rwanda to make his investments. I think that is an incredible compliment when you got 54 countries. But if you might care to just address those questions about, you know, how is Rwanda being the facilitator of this sort of regional East Africa and Africa that you're speaking about, and how can Kenyan investors take advantage?
Yeah. What we have tried to do here in Rwanda has two reasons for it. Our approach to doing many things has those specific reasons. One, it is for the benefits that come out of what we are trying to do, whether it is easing on work permits, visas, or all kinds of things for people to really come to Rwanda. It's because we want to tap into those resources that people come with, whether it is financial capital or skills or technology and so on and so forth. The second reason is that we also want to prove that some of these things are actually possible. And as we do them, which will provide a good example, it breaks the kind of barrier or fear where people even may think these are unknowns, that they fear the unknown. So we want to be there trying it, to experiment things, and if that works, then everybody else can do it. I don't think there's anything we Rwandans or here we can do that other people can't do. You will find that after time other people can even do it better. But there is that always hesitation people have to do something. So if we can help test things and they work, I'm sure others. And as they work for others, then you understand it's not just Rwanda getting better off on this, it's the East African region. And if the whole of East Africa gets better, it multiplies how many times actually the one gets better. So it's about making it easy for people to move and come to the country, leave the country, and move with their assets if they will, or their money, as that case may be. The other has been to focus on how do we make it easy for people to do business here. There have been many reforms carried out at different times. There have been reviews about these reforms, whether they worked or whether there are other things we can do to even improve and make things better. On the side of tax, corporate tax has been looked at and made attractive so that when people do their businesses here, that is something that they would be interested in. There have been tax breaks under consideration for people in certain sectors. But in order to do this and succeed, you just don't offer some of these incentives. You must also be able to put in place institutions and mechanisms to monitor that actually what you are giving people on the basis of the promise they have made to do these things is what they do. You don't want to attract somebody in a certain sector and give the incentives required that would, make it attractive. People come saying that's what they are coming to do, and then they end up doing something else. Then there is a disconnect, and in the end, what we wanted may not be achieved. So we have to strengthen all levels where there is going to be some sense of accountability to one another, but as well as making sure that really what somebody is doing correctly is beneficial, not only to the person, but to the country. So this is what we are trying to do.
My next question is about Rwanda Air. If you look around the world, most people would say getting into an airline business is not an easy thing. And here you have a very successful airline. And my father's 81 now. He lives in Mombasa, and my brother's in Dubai. And he now takes Rwanda Air from Mombasa direct to Dubai, and he's so happy about it because he doesn't have to change a flight. What informed your thinking around that? And now I see you're carving open lots of new markets in East and West Africa. Mombasa, that example I gave, is one market that opened up. But there are so many other places you're opening up. How can Rwanda also facilitate investors trying to penetrate these markets with Rwanda?
Right. What informs us on this Rwanda, for example, and here I really say there were a few fights for this to take off, and again it was an issue of trying to experiment. I remember right from the inception, when you talked about forming an airline, I had friends from across the world who have actually, very wealthy people who have airlines, and so I even talked to some of them. But of course, all of them were saying, that's not a good thing to do. In fact, one of them sent me an expert to say, they go and study with your people how this airline can be carried out. And when this expert came here, they go into numbers and all kinds of things. It's like, this is a crazy idea. So our other experts also, the local ones here, really believed it. They came to me and said, President, some people were politely telling you that you are crazy, but they were saying we are crazy. And through that means your idea is really crazy. It doesn't work. I said, why doesn't it work? They showed me the numbers. And this person, in fact, had made a mention of something saying, if instead of Rwanda putting their money in this airline, they would rather add it to the money that comes from development aid and do something else, like health, education, and so on and so forth. It sounded good. But, so I told our people, and later on our friends who had been advising us, I told them, I said, you see, these numbers are confusing a little bit in this. I said, Rwanda is not making the choice to go into airline business as a profitable business. In fact, Rwanda does not want to run a business, an airline business. But what we are looking at is, this is a business, if Rwanda does it, that will connect Rwandans and others and enable them to do business, and these people will make hundreds of times more money for themselves. If it is Rwandans, I consider it as a profit to the government as well.
That was a very smart way of thinking.
So it is a business to enable
businesses.
And you get more money here, even if you don't get much in an airline. So I was, for example, quick calculation. I was saying, in running this airline, we may be losing, say, 10 million, just a rough figure, $10 million on the airline every year instead of making money. But we will have made money for businesses that are 100 times that. So I said, government can keep absorbing this 10 million loss, but Rwandan businesses are making money. We are seeing tourism, we are seeing, Rwanda being connected to the rest of the continent, and this comes with the money. And so far, I haven't been proven wrong.
No.
And by the way, there was another thing. Rwanda, we know our place. And again, it's our mindset, it's our thinking, for even survival, if you will. If you look at the geographical size of Rwanda and even the size of the market, immediately somebody may just dismiss you and say, why do I go to this small place instead of going to some other place? So you've got to think of something that will bring people to your place, because they will make a choice to go somewhere else if you don't create that. So in fact, airlines probably one day may work on, like the other experts were telling us, simple numbers. They may choose to say, no, we have no reason to go to Rwanda. But this Rwanda is not going to tell me they have no reason to go to Rwanda. So they'll be coming here, they'll be going wherever we tell them to go. So once this thrives and, again, eventually we are not going to run this business as government. In a short time, we may give it to people who want to run it, private people. And government just pulls back and does something else. This is how this hotel was built, by the way.
How was it built?
This hotel was built in the same way. It was, we had no hotel at one time. And again, the same kind of thinking. The World Bank or these institutions work with, they would tell us, on one hand, but they also have a contradiction. They would look at all sectors and identify which sectors are going to be profitable and useful for the development of our economy and so on. And one of them, for example, was tourism. And they identify that. But then later on, they stop short of telling us what actually tourism requires. Trying to develop tourism without hotels,
can't do it.
I don't know how far you go with that. So when we talked, we said, but we don't have hotels. It's like, oh, the private sector will do it. So we waited, and the private sector weren't investing. So I will tell our ministers of finance and others, and say, but nobody's, and we would talk to all these the private sector people. I said, why are you not building hotels? Well, but you see, the private sector will put their money where they want to put it, not where you tell them to put it.
True.
So then I said, no, we are going to build a hotel as a government. And once it is up and running, it is easier to sell it to the private person than tell the private person to put up a hotel. Because he will be seeing something and trying to make sense of it, and maybe can connect it with other businesses. And once he sees that, then it becomes attractive. So the World Bank people and others, they would go and really squeeze our ministers of finance and say, you can't borrow money for this. So one time there was a meeting here, and our Minister of Finance then was put under pressure not to borrow, not to look for money anywhere, and buried in the government. So he comes and tells me, President, I think the hotel project is a dead one. We can't take off with it, and otherwise we are going to have problems. And he said, you know what? Leave this hotel thing to me. When the World Bank people come to you next time, you bring them to me. You say, it's my business. So next time they came here, he brought them to me. So I said, what's your problem? They went into all these theories and things, and so I said, okay, I promise you one thing. Government is not interested in doing hotel business. That's not our aim. So we are not borrowing money to build a hotel, to run a hotel business for anything. We want a hotel up and running, and we pass it on to the private sector. And if we don't do that, give me somebody from the private sector who is going to do it now, here and now. I said, do you have anyone in mind? He says, well, but you see. I said, no. So I said, I am going to build this hotel. It has nothing to do with our Minister of Finance. It has not, so don't blame him. It's me. I'm going to build this hotel.
Wow.
So we actually did that. And I said, so we contracted the management. At first it was Intercontinental to come and manage the hotel when it was up and running. Later on we gave it to Serena. But of course, just on the lighter note, finally, when the hotel was up and running, and these delegations from IMF and the World Bank came here, they would have fired their representatives here if they did not book them in this hotel. So that's how things happen. So it's the story of the hotel, it's the story of the airline.
There's that great Apple advert about how it's only people who believe they can change the world that change it. If you just accept what people tell you, you would never have done that. You wouldn't have the hotel. You wouldn't.
Absolutely. So I don't know what is coming next, but
we're all looking.
We are thinking about it.
I got two more questions for His Excellency, then I'll take some questions from the audience. Your Excellency, one of the things you keep saying is that the region is not short of political capital. And I think in this respect, you are really the leader. Our president is also very invested on the political capital side towards the EAC regional integration agenda. And that you have this sense of urgency, which I love, which is like, let's do it now. Why aren't we doing it now? What are you most frustrated with the way things are going? And what can we, as the private sector that we have here, do to tackle these issues and be like your vanguard, be your shock troops that go in there and try and do these things that you feel need to be done?
The frustration comes with how slow almost for obvious things, profitable businesses and so on, how slow things are going. I'll give you another example. You know the story of telecoms in the 3 northern corridor countries, right? Which you have made very good progress on. Simply talking about removing roaming charges and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Right? You see, initially when this issue came up, everybody seemed to be, it's like some new discovery or something. Something that should be clear to all of us in government or private sector. In fact, even the telecom operators first opposed this. They were hesitant.
This is the one
network across this area of the 3 countries. And it took some time for people to digest it, to implement it. They were looking for excuses to not do it, instead of excuses to do it. Now, quickly, simply, what we have realized in this is we've seen the prices come down 50%.
Yes.
Right? Where it was 20 cents, it has become, I think, 11, close to 50%. We've seen revenues go up 20%. We've seen subscriber numbers go up 300%. So who lost here? Is it telecom operators? Is it citizens? Is it governments? So what were we waiting for all along?
What do you think we were waiting for?
I don't know. We were just waiting for ourselves.
Yes.
Yes, just to be able to just do it. That's all. It just doesn't make sense.
So do you think there are many things like that we're missing, that where we could just
Yes,
be,
yes, that is at the heart of the matter. But I think maybe what we are missing is somebody somewhere in the whole setup was making a kill over millions of people. Everybody was getting a raw deal except 1 or 2 individuals. And still even this person maybe is not making as much money as they were making, but is still making a lot of money. So it's just a sense of responsibility that has to be shared across, and they are acting together to deliver this that needs to be delivered. This is a sense of frustration. And if you look at, when you look at the removal of non-tariff barriers, the movement of businesses and goods and so on and so forth. I mean, if you look at what was blocking everything, which we so easily removed and was easy to remove anyway from the beginning, and everything is, much better than it was, again you ask yourself, what were we waiting for? What is it that was preventing us getting this done all along, whether it is the private sector people or people in the public sector? More so, of course, there are more problems on the government side than the private sector, but I think the private sector may have some of these few problems they need to address as well. But what resolves it and may help us speed it up is this working together, this involvement. And that's why I thought the whole initiative of bringing the private sector in the Northern Corridor meetings and contributing to that, maybe we can even actually do it better and more effectively than we probably are today. But I think it is good, so that the private sector, mindset and changes alongside that of government, so that we are moving together and realizing that it is benefiting all of us and finally our citizens who involve on a wide scale the private sector.
My final question before I throw it open to the audience is, Mr. President, if you look at things like mobile money, the M-Pesa phenomenon, now
Yes.
Dr. Mwangi is also doing a big thing in the mobile money space. But M-Pesa was like a brand out of Kenya that went global.
Sure.
If I go to someone Kenya, they go to me M-Pesa.
Yes.
More than even the wildlife or anything. And even your brand, and when I was looking through this, the brand Rwanda, you're describing yourself as a small country, but that punches on a global scale. I mean, it is a phenomenon that I must say, it did not happen by accident, I don't think. It happened with design, and it's extremely successful. How do we, in the private sector, in the government, create these sort of brands that play on the global scale, in your view? How do we go about it, enabling African countries to push their brands up to the top, above the radar, and play on that global field?
Sure. You see, the brand like that one, a product like M-Pesa and so on, that you have described, or a couple of others. First of all, they constitute an example that actually things can happen like this. So what we need to do, therefore, is to create a critical mass of believers, people who believe in themselves, who believe in Rwanda, in Kenya, in the region, and just using this example and know that yes, things can be done, can be created, innovations can originate from Kenya, they can originate from here, and go on a global scale. So there is this example. There is a need to believe. There is also need to act. But we need to create this critical mass of these actors and the believers, and we have to keep working to broaden that. It's really for me where the problem is.
Do you think we don't have enough self-belief?
We don't. Yes, we don't. It's the very reason things don't happen the way they should be happening, given that we have the tools in our hands, that we are capable. And it has been proven by these few examples you are talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. President, thank you so much for that conversation. I would like to now take some... You see what I mean when you speak with the president, you feel that everything is possible, and why are you still sitting in the chair and not trying something? But I would like to offer up, well, first of all, let's turn to our panelists on the panel. Kiprono, would you like to add any thoughts? Because I'm sure this is meat and drink to Kiprono Kitoni, what you've just heard.
I just wanted to agree with the president on two issues. One, I think it's not, we shouldn't listen to the consultants all the time, and I think he cited many examples. And let's look at history. I mean, the Titanic, as it left its dock, the makers said this ship is so good that even the gods can't sink it, and we saw what happened.
Yes.
And the same thing happened many times in history, that really the consultants have been proven wrong. And I think really when you believe in yourself enough, you can really prove anything wrong, anything correct. But let me talk about briefly about intra-African trade. I think there's a lot to be said about that, and I do believe that there's a colonial conspiracy, or to be more diplomatic, there's a historical conspiracy that made Africans not trade with Africans. And if we look at the statistics, the latest WTO statistics, intra-American trade within the Americas is at 40%. Intra-European trade within the European Union is at 63%. Intra-African trade is only 12%. We are not doing business with each other. I mean, what explains the fact that in Nigeria, we have butter exported all the way from New Zealand into Nigeria when we have surplus dairy products in Kenya most of the year? What explains the fact that next door in the Congo, we have chicken imported from Brazil, and there are farms here in Rwanda and in Kenya? I think that there is a lot to be said and a lot to be done to make ourselves trade with each other, to really open the markets and have a free flow of goods and services. And I think we really have to, commend the leadership for having the political will to have one customs union. And I think it's for us now in the private sector to really go out and do business with each other through platforms such as the one we are creating today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gasamagera, would you like to add any comment?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I would like just to comment on that belief and confidence that His Excellency was talking about. It's really, when it comes to private sector, I think there also we have to admit that there's something we can do on it. And I really think that if we play well on that, we can help the other sectors to achieve what we have to achieve. Because when you see, for example, in Rwanda, everybody agrees that we have a unique environment for doing business. But when we see how we use it to make it productive as what we have received in that environment, there's still a gap, which me personally, but I think some of also my colleagues, makes them also frustrated as in other sectors. But I think it's not too late. We need really to catch up on that, create that good interpretation of what is coming to us and what it's coming for what, to enable us to create more wealth, to be more productive. And as His Excellency has rightly put it, we need to have the right mindset, especially in the private sector. I think there's something sometimes when you look at it, maybe it came from our colonial background, which separates sectors. Like the public sector is on its side, on its own, the private sector is on its own, and maybe the others are on their own. In Rwanda, we have made tremendous efforts, and it's going on very well, but we still have to make it even more closer, that rapprochement between the sectors. We have to make it a reality. And I think that's when we will, how can I say, we nourish each other. The efforts which are made on one side will replicate on the other sector. And I think on that side, private sector, if we can do the right thing, and we can leverage, pull the immense critical mass that we have, and it's not only in Rwanda, I think it's in all African countries. You see someone who is not working in the government, he's partly in employed or partly in business, doing some business. So if we can leverage that potential that we have, especially it's massive, even not to leave it to the cities, but go even up countries, in farmers, teach the farmers how they can be more productive, because production is a chain, is a whole chain process. But sometimes you see that we concentrate on the end side of it, or in just the side which is towards the end. But I think we have to start it from the beginning up to the end. Even if we don't do it all, but participate in it and understanding what it takes to do it, and then participate to create that critical mass. I think that is, if private sector was doing it in the right way, that will be very helpful for achieving our goals. And as you clearly said in the beginning, I think we also have to bring that belief of that impossible is nothing. If this doesn't happen in Africa, especially in Rwanda, with the inspiration that we have and we are enjoying, we really need. If we don't do it, I think I always feel ashamed when we don't, because I think we are among the luckiest ones.
Yeah. I'm going to turn now to Dr. James Mwangi, and I want to tell you a little story about him, because he too is a man who believed in his mission. And I remember when I first came back home, Your Excellency, and I was driving up from Matito and Day, and I thought, how am I going to meet everybody in Nairobi? And I said, I'm going to write a book. And then I rang up everybody in Nairobi, and I met all the bank CEOs first before I got to James's office. And everybody said to me, this business of lending microfinance, never going to work. These guys will not pay it back. And I remember getting to James, and James, I spoke to James for 30 minutes, and I knew two things. I knew, one, it was going to work, and I knew, two, James was going to make it work. And and actually I bought his shares that day, and it was a very profitable trade. Thank you, James. But just to go back to, James made some comments on the panel today, which were extremely complimentary, I thought. He said it took him 21 days to get his banking license here. And the other thing he said, which I think was really important, he spoke about values. And he said that Rwanda is the lodestar of values in the East African community. I thought I'd just like to share that with you, because I think it's an extremely high compliment. Dr. Mwangi, your question.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I want to pick on your speech today, very inspiring. 4 things you said. The first one is about anybody in the room should never consider them foreigners if they're East Africans. A very profound statement coming from a leader of a country.
Yeah.
The second one is East Africa has never been globally visible and relevant as it is today. And the third and fourth one is the unique way of looking at analysis for decision making, leading to Rwanda Air, leading to the Selena Hotel, leading to Kigali International Conference Center, and One Network. And that, when analyzed, then looks at a political leadership that is not only visionary, smart and daring, but a leadership that seems to be ahead of its people for several years. And that is why the consequence, what you said, the frustration of slow implementation. Leadership is dreaming, the population is not moving at the same pace. And consequently, too, Mr. President, the answer to why is it not happening, I thought that was a very good question, which I am sure we didn't get a satisfactory answer from the President. And that leads then me, Mr. President, to the question, what is it that we can do as East Africa to mobilize our people, to sensitize our people, to see ourselves as one people, as one community, as one market, so that we could be able to reap the benefits that comes with exploiting the opportunities of cross-border investment, cross-border trade, and economies of a bigger market. Mr. President, I want us to go beyond what we can see you are doing to institutionalize your leadership in terms of cross-border infrastructure development, policy reforms, a common approach to global agenda as an East African region. what can we do to the people so that we bridge the gap between the aspirational leadership and the execution of following by the people? Thank you, Excellency.
Yeah, that takes me back to the complexity of the problem. But I really didn't give the answer because I didn't have it. But I can try to find a way to deal with that. You see, it remains difficult to answer the particular question you've raised, which is a very pertinent one. And I want to answer it like this, which is something we discuss daily at home here in the government or with our citizens or with the... I ask questions every time I get an opportunity myself. There is, you see, in doing things, there are things you do because they are urgent, you understand that, and you actually have the means in your hands to do it, and you do it. There are other things you identify as being urgent and important, but you don't have the immediate means to do it. Faced with this situation, I always ask my people, I said, look, for those things that we don't have means to do, I can understand why they have to wait. Because you are trying to mobilize means to do it, but you already understand it is important. But what is the explanation for not doing things you know that are urgent and you have means for? It's a repetitive question. Because these things are there. There are things you have discussed. There are things you have identified as being important. Means are available to do. And you have even secured an agreement across the board that this is what we're going to do. Then you come, days later, weeks later, months later, you find this has not been done. So how can I answer that? So how can we fail to do things we know that we have to do that are important and for which we have means? What is the explanation? That's why I don't have the ready answer you are looking for. But the answer does not lie in giving up either. I wouldn't give up and say, you know, I'm really frustrated, you know, you have people, you want to do things, you have agreed which things to do, you have means to do that, but they don't end up doing them. And therefore, let me give up. No, we have no option of giving up. We keep trying, we keep pushing, we keep communicating, we keep asking questions. So I think this keeps increasing the numbers of people who will understand, who will take this on, and who will, and the beauty also is the acceleration of doing things and implementation is helped by even the few successes people have witnessed or benefits they have got from things that have been done already. If somebody is doing something, tested the benefit and the fruits of success, then they want to do it more. And if somebody else sees that, they want to do it even more. So managing, therefore, societies and people, and it all comes to people, is not an easy thing. Sometimes not everybody at this level of responsibility is going to feel the urgency of not only doing this, but of understanding the benefits or the differences this makes for somebody else. So people don't quickly grasp that I have a responsibility. Everybody's waiting for me to do something, and from that they will do other things that benefit them. And you don't connect that delay and the impact it has on people. You just look at your end and stop there, and for you maybe it doesn't hurt you much, or actually it benefits you a lot, but you alone, when it could have benefited you and everybody else, and you don't make this connection. So delivering that to the scale that is required is what makes the question difficult to answer. But again, the answer lies in you keep trying, you keep communicating, you keep doing things, you keep involving, you know. You have to understand leadership cannot function in isolation. When you are a leader and you are thinking and you are acting even correctly, this comes to nothing if nobody is going along with you. You see, you've got to move others with you, the other leaders or other people at different levels. Otherwise, what else? You know, I can come here and give a very nice speech, everybody claps, it makes sense. But how about it? How about another step? Was the speech an end in itself? Where the good ideas an end in themselves? Until I have something out of these ideas, this whole thing remains, you know, just another good speech which people clapped for, and but what did they have out of it?
I think you've just given a massive challenge to this entire room.
Absolutely,
Thank
but
you.
that's where the solution will come from. It's no, and let me end this by, you know, I was watching television. There's this man, the CEO of Alibaba, this Chinese.
Jack Ma.
Yes. He was saying, he kept saying, you know, everybody must have a dream. But what if that dream comes true?
He was saying.
He was saying that. So I'm trying therefore to imagine even the same thing. You know, when you were saying, you know, in our discussion, you know, you get a sense that everything is possible. Yeah, just imagine if everything actually became possible.
Oof.
But everything will not become possible until you have tried it.
Yes.
Until you have done it. So then for this man, really what he was saying, imagine if the dream you have comes true. It will never come true until you have tried.
That's right.
Yes.
The question from the audience. I think it's James who's got his hand up. Anyone else that I'm missing? And then I'll come to, but we've got to have some Rwanda balance here as well. James, do you want to put the question to the President?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. My name is James. I'm the chairman of the National Economic Diplomacy Committee at the Chamber. And I have a statement and a question. Listening to you and the vision you have for this country, you've led the country to do what is necessary and then what is possible. And clearly, the combination of those two are making you look like you're doing the impossible. If you look at that statement from the Rwandese context, and I have been a regular visitor and a business person here, I saw the chaos that used to be in Rwanda, Kigali, with the matatus, the taxis. And you made a statement that they will go. And yesterday when I came back after a year, I was pleasantly surprised by the order in the city. Having said that, you have pursued leadership that is visionary, that clearly shows the way. But I wonder what your colleagues and the people around you who see the brand of Mr. President Paul Kagame think about leadership. Because my question to you is to define what leadership is, because there are people who brand themselves as leaders, and I would like to know whether they really deserve to be called leaders. And the second part of my question is about economic diplomacy versus political diplomacy. Which way would you rather have it? Would you rather get your economic diplomacy right, then political diplomacy follows? Or is it a case where people have pursued political diplomacy and in the event lost economic diplomacy? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take a couple more and then maybe, is that? Oh, you want to answer that one? Okay, I'll go one on one.
I lose track of, well, on the first one, I would always prefer such to be answered by somebody else. Because even in leadership, it's not so much leaders that will define themselves or make such interpretation of what they are doing themselves. But yes, leaders in a way is about responsibility. It's about delivery. It's about involving others to participate. You know, there is a theory, people keep saying, you know, that leadership is really a lonely place. And I also believe it doesn't need to be a lonely place. In fact, leadership delivers better when it is not a lonely place, when it involves others. So for me, that involvement is very key. And taking responsibility involves doing very hard things that may not appear even, you know, that way to everybody, but it means what are the results, and what is the value in those results, meaning to as many people as possible. So it makes it very difficult. So leaders will be defined differently. They will have different styles. They will, you know, they operate in different contexts. So there is not really one leader that you say, in this one there is everything. It's very difficult because the context, the style, the expectations, all of these things are different from one place to another. But at the end of the day, it's those people where leaders are operating that will give a better definition of this leader. And it's also whether the expectations have been met or even exceeded in some cases, and therefore what is the level of satisfaction on the basis of what these leaders were serving and who they were serving. So it's a rather complex issue. I don't want to spend more time on it than that one. You know, for the quick one, the second part, I think the two should go together really. I don't think one should run the political what did you call it? Political diplomacy and economic diplomacy. I can conclude from what you are saying that diplomacy has become a common denominator. So I would rather have the two together, economic and political together. But they may manifest in different measures. You may find that one point one runs ahead of the other may run ahead of the other, but really striking a balance for a good outcome is I think what is necessary. But the two are important. So how one moves with the other, which one is ahead of the other at different times, will depend again on circumstances. But you look at the overall outcome, I think that's what defines it.
I think, Madame Odinga, Deputy Governor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Ruth Odinga. I'm the Deputy Governor, Kisumu County. First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the support you give women of Rwanda, which
Good point.
Which we, the other African women, are using as an example to be able to uplift ourselves and to reach the Rwanda example. Thank you very much. Mine is very short. I'd just like to ask that you actually escalate the Rwanda brand and have it cascaded into the whole of Africa, because I think that is how we can be able to do it. Your fight on corruption and all that you've been doing to make sure that business, private sector and public sector work together, the performance management that you've done with the public sector, which we should emulate in the whole of Africa, can support the private sector and to make them be able to actually work together. In Kenya, we now say we want governors who are coming from the corporate world, because they can do it. They use their practical experiences to support the public sector. Please cascade brand Rwanda to the whole of Africa, and we will move on. Thank you.
The best way to do it is by and with you. So we will be ready to do that. Again, the best way to do it is really doing it with the people who are here, each one playing their part, and we all of us working together. I think the point is well taken. Thank you.
That was a great point, actually, and I think it is so exciting to see so many empowered women in your administration, Mr. President. Really is, and so many young people, and that enthusiasm is fabulous. And you know, I can't think of any countries that can survive without empowering their women in the 21st century. It's such a competitive world, and if half our people aren't empowered, what are we doing? So thank you, Madame Odinga. Has anyone else got a question, preferably from the Rwanda? Mr. Fusion. Please, can we have a mic here? It was a very articulate presentation about Kigali Heights that we heard, and also about why we should come to Rwanda. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, thank you very much for gracing the occasion and putting this group together. Some of us did not attend the breakfast at which the private sector in Kenya invited you, but we were told of what happened. And one of the questions I hear they asked was that, can we learn from you? How do you get it right? What makes things work in your place? And we employ as much effort on our side and we don't get the same results. I did not hear that question coming up today, but probably if I in your place and we employ as much effort on our side and we don't get the same results. I did not hear that question coming up today, but probably if I on this, a couple of answers you gave earlier clearly demonstrate what makes things work. It's being focused and you're results oriented, and results will come and will be measured. The other thing that is commonly said from our fellow business people that we meet is, and this is often talked of as a joke, they say, you have a tough man. Clearly, I'm sure you're quite aware of this, lots of these business people look at you as a tough man. The toughness is probably what they want to learn today. It is tough in decisions, it is tough in making sure what's agreed upon has been reached, but it is common talk that you get things right in Rwanda because you have a tough leader. And I don't know if you want to share possibly the element of toughness that they speculate about. But those those of us who live with you here know that you are a simple man, but you are up to results. That's the first one. The second one, Your Excellency, is that Kenya, we know Kenyans, it is capital rich. The Kenyans have earned themselves a brand, by the way, around here, Excellency. We call them Banya Kenya. So the Banya Kenya you see here have serious money. We know some of them, they have it, solid money. And we've been encouraging them, bring it around. Let's make good use of the money. I would like to request you to encourage them further. Bring the money. He has, starting here and others, they have solid money, we know it. But I think they've wanted to be sure, can you put money in that land? And a few other people have been asking us. I speak to a couple of Kenyans across and others across the region. Some of us ask you, so what is going to happen after 2017? And you're like, no, but why don't we start business now?
But 2017 is not the end of my life.
It's not the end of
I hope not.
So that is commonly asked. I'm sure people will be curious to hear that businesses will be stable even after 2020.
I may be managing some of these companies if they allow me to.
Your Excellency, there is a business opportunity that I'm requesting that you draw the Kenyan investors into. A few, actually almost a year back, His Excellency gave us a plot of land, a key plot of land, to be home for East Africa's Business Council. In the best point of town that you can never get it. It wasn't a give, actually. It wasn't simply a give. It was bought for us. Government paid $1,350,000 for the East Africans. Why? To brand ourselves as a potential business bloc that people out there look at us as potential business people. The plot of land is available, Your Excellency. We've been calling on investors, equity and others, and all these banks, because we think, as an organization called East African Business Council is nothing other than the people you see here, and others in other countries who are not here. And we think that they should think seriously and positively of investing into this building, and it becomes theirs. And after a time when the money invested in the project will have been realized as a return, and it's a return rather, then it can belong to East African Business Council as an organization. May I request Your Excellency to employ people here to invest in this project. It becomes a build, operate, and transfer, and it becomes our brand as the East Africa's Trade Center. The one reason we respect, each time we're invited to the United States, to Asia, to where, they call us to come to our trade center. And sometimes it is the power of the building, more than the people you find in, that actually gives them the feel that, oh, you are somewhere. Can we build our own East Africa's Trade Center, use it, collect money from it? Those of you who have the money, I know there's solid money in Kenya, bring it here, but I'm sure, Excellency, the message will be best heard from you. The last one, Your Excellency, is we mentioned about the project we've done with the Fusion Capital, my colleague Kajuju from Fusion Capital, just to demonstrate how commitment makes it. We promised government and we promised Rwanda Development Board that we shall deliver this project on time. And some people somewhere believe that can't it change? Is it actually going to be on schedule? I have had several people asking me, is it going on schedule? And you're like, why? No, does it happen? And I'm like, why not? But the key question that I or rather answer I give people is, when we go into private business, it's simply not private business per se. We have put a project on a piece of land that should actually be occupied by a complete project, not a half-measured project. It has to create jobs, it has to create employment, it has to serve the purpose which it was meant for. Just to inform Your Excellency that we will be on schedule with our Kenyan counterparts. There's about 7 Kenyan brands that are going to operate in there, and probably it may be too early, but I think it would be no harm to extend an invitation to yourself to grace the opening of the building on the 25th of March 2016. I want to also invite several Kenyans who will be opening up branches in that place to be present. I thank you, Your Excellency.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, it is a safe bet that I will be there if it is not after 2017. But, what you continued talking about, Kenyans having solid money and so on and so forth. Absolutely, that is a welcome idea for people to invest their money here. But equally important, or even more important, Kenyans have actually a solid way of making money. I think I'm more interested in that. The solid way of making that money is key. So, and this is to achieve because working together, then you tap into those ways of making solid money. So money itself, the way to make money is key. So I definitely will add my voice to yours, and I think that's why we are here actually. I'm sure it's because Kenyans, Rwandans want to cooperate to do serious business that benefits the investors and people in the businesses, as well as citizens of the two countries. There's no way that is not going to be the case. So I think you've really raised some points or questions and gone ahead and answered them. So I don't think I don't think I have much work to do. So for being there when you are inaugurating the good building you are setting up, I can almost promise that. And for the Kenyans working with Rwandans and making both and continuing to make Rwanda and Kenya proud places on our continent. That's why we are here. And through collaborations that already exist, I think that's going to be very key. For the business center you want to build, of course we can only remind people and associate ourselves with that. Putting up the East African Business Center, which you have in mind, is a welcome idea. Everyone will contribute to that, and the sooner we see it up and running, we'll serve everybody's interests. I think you have answered the others about all kinds of definitions and descriptions. I think we can keep digesting that and trying to find the meaning of it and as we go about the businesses.
You know, the President, I was a guest of the First Lady, and we were having lunch, and she told me at lunch that sometimes the in-laws tell her, Janet, how come he's not putting on any weight? Mm-hmm. You know, why is he not, what are you doing to His Excellency? So I'm aware that we're up against a lunch limit. Mm-hmm. I would like to, first of all, thank Your Excellency for empowering us, for gracing us with your presence, for sharing your thoughts in such a frank manner, for making us all feel that we're part of your team, which we are, and for receiving the chamber, Kenya Chamber, so kindly. And really, we feel, like you said, that this is our home as well. Yeah. And that is a really special feeling for people to get from anybody.
Before you finish, I think the First Lady must have been very smart to push back responsibility to you and not to her. she wasn't, so she thought, I think you and others are responsible for that.
Yes.
Otherwise, she tries her best.
No, I know. I wasn't.
Thank you.
Would you like to make any concluding remarks, Your Excellency?
Well, where I would want to conclude this, first of all, is to thank you. And by the way, from what Dennis was saying already, I think I should say it for you to thank the KNCCI for really initiating this. I think this was the idea when I was invited for breakfast while in Kenya. They had taken the initiative to start it off. So I think I would suggest you give them applause. So thank you for starting this, for associating us to be part of it, and I'm sure now the responsibility lies on all of us to make sure that it serves the best interests of our two countries and our people, and even beyond for the whole of East Africa. And again, I want us to leave this room knowing that everything we aspire to, we put our minds to, we want to achieve and feel we deserve is possible. And it is possible if we are convinced and want to try and play our part. We will always make a good progress. And I think there are many examples to learn from, whether it is in Kenya or in Rwanda or in other parts. And I think let's build on and continue to build the kind of confidence it takes for that to happen. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Ali Khan. That was a terrific, very, very, very interesting and inspiring session. I'm sure people, Mr. President, will take your words to heart and start implementing today.